How are we doing?
We're doing great. And then there was being.
Then there was being. So this is where you need to hold my hand. We need to go up the hill, the grassy patch. We need to then tumble down the hill of being. So this is interesting because you know what came up quite a few, and this is again genius. As I was facilitating the relationship stuff, I kid you not, these CTOs were saying, well, it depends on how you're being in the relationship. And I was just like, this couldn't be more beautifully teed up
hmm
for us to go into the third month of being.
hmm
So, what the heck? What is this?
Well, how do you define being?
Well, being, I'm going to put my haven't been through the program, this isn't a quiz kind of
hmm
hat on, because I'm sure there's a definition I should have remembered. But um, I think the best way for me to think about it is the question, who am I being right now when I am talking to someone? And I feel like it is something I can be intentional about, and it is something. It's the way I show up in in a relationship or even to myself. It's maybe the layman's terms, the way I can come up with it is just how I show up.
hmm
But I don't know if that's the E word, essence. I don't know if it's so. Being to me is sort of when you look at me, I am being a certain way. Is that is
hmm
that is that how it is?
Yeah, and it makes sense that you asked that about essence because, which surprise, that's going to be after being. But um, being is something we're doing all the time. Being is something that's happening
It
all the
is
time,
something we're
right?
doing.
There's always a way that we are showing up in the world. And essence is that, like, we use that term to describe, hey, we all have a particular way that we are reliable to show up as, that the world knows of us. That's our own particular flavor, right? Like,
Got it.
you definitely have an essence, like people reliably and consistently know that Etienne is going to bring a level of like play and fun. Like, that's naturally a part of who you are, that we could say, oh, if Etienne's going to show up, many of us are going to bet here's how he's going to be when he shows up.
Mm.
Being is that something we're always naturally doing that is I don't know why I keep saying doing, and I don't know if it confuses people, but uh it's
Because
just
because because we often talk about the being versus doing, right?
right. Right. Yes, it's how we show up, right? So typically, when people meet someone for the first time, we all have learned different things to notice. Some people notice what the person is wearing. Some people notice what they say. Some people notice how they make them feel, right? We all have these things. But I suspect that when we're babies, we just notice people's being, right? You ever like I'm gonna brag for a second. I'm the type of person where, for some reason, no matter where I go, if there's a baby, that baby is gonna stare at me and smile. And I think that's because of my being, that I think that I have a warm or something, typically, not on all days, but that there's something that a baby can recognize in me and think, oh, safety or comfort or warmth over there. As we get older, we stop noticing being, and instead we notice these other things, which we don't need to get into that. But being, yes, is the natural way that we show up in the world. So,
Mm.
and why this is so important is that if you can notice how someone is being, you know then how much curiosity can you have with them? How much space do you have with them? What's their day been going like? How should you speak to them? Because what we know about humans is if someone's feeling, on a particular way, and you show up and you bring the exact opposite and you're leading them, they're not going to feel seen, heard, noticed, or ready to hear what you have to say. But if we notice someone's being, and then we can actually, as leaders, meet them where they are in that way, really
Mm.
helps sometimes.
Now, are
We
you
have a
saying
tool.
are you saying that being, let's say, the appraiser shows up at my house because he needs to appraise my property,
Mm-hmm.
and he walks through my door. The first time I ever see John, are you saying that I can distinguish his being just 10 seconds in, 1 minute in, chit chat?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not a construct. So it's not something that you're saying that as humans, we just naturally have a sense of each other's beings.
Yeah. And we can put words to them because we know what certain things mean, right? Like that's what I'm saying. A baby might have a feeling, which then makes them
Mm,
smile and like look at that person, right? They
mm,
don't have the words to put to it, but they have a sense. We all still have that sense. It's a way we can actually, I would suspect that it's part of our primordial brain, right? We know, okay, over there safe, over here
mm,
not safe,
mm.
welcoming here, not welcoming here, right? We all know we've walked up to a cash register or the barista at Starbucks and been like, can I have that barista instead? They look a lot happier or something, right? Like we notice these things,
Yeah.
but we don't actually stay in the noticing of that or use it to our advantage. I'm, sometimes where if I get a waitress and she seems like she's in a bad mood, some people would combat that with more bad moodness, right? Oh, she's being rude to me,
Mm,
so I might be rude to her.
mm,
It serves me that if I notice someone's being off or like, ornery, whatever, not very nice, that I could actually say, hey, I notice seems like you might be having a bad
mm.
day and you don't have to answer me, but is it okay? And, sometimes people might be like, screw you. How dare you ask me that? But more often than not, I get, yeah, wow, no one else has noticed that.
I love that.
So if as leaders, our job is to lead people and serve them, and we're not really seeing them, how they show up, we're already missing something, right? Versus if someone is showing up a particular way and you see that and you share it with them, you say, hey, I noticed today it seems like you're pretty sad. Is there anything you need? Gosh, your employee or your team member is going to suddenly feel more seen than they ever have before.
I think that is, I mean, even as you said, because what I'm seeing is two things. One, there's probably a built-in ability to notice someone's being
Mm-hmm.
through their countenance or through something they say or how they stand, body language, whatever. But what I'm hearing you say is that there's a skill, which I actually got a little afraid as you were saying it, which maybe that's what people are hearing right now, is the the courage to basically step in. And again, almost like we talked about the relationship being the third, there's no meaning. It's just, hey, I'm noticing this, you seem this, or I noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
That requires again a level of courage, right?
Yeah. And I realize I've used that example about if noticing being to then speak to it. You might notice being and not speak to it, but then know how to be with someone, right? So, for example, I think that there's being is important in terms of being a leader and how you show up and knowing about this idea and this container can support your leadership both for you to produce the results you want, right? Being aware of who you are being and practicing a particular thing, and in noticing others so you can connect more with them and better understand how to lead them. So, for example, if we think about some major leaders in the world or in history, and you think about their being, how they showed up, and what impact that had, right? Like if Martin Luther King Jr. had had a being of screw everyone and everyone sucks, people wouldn't have gone to listen to him, right? He still may have said the same words, but they would have landed much different. And people
Mm.
would not have been like so called to follow him, right? But there was something about how he showed up that made people feel a certain way. And it really worked for him and advantage for his leadership.
Yeah, and I hear that, but then I also feel it's almost like and I don't know if I've been trained this or if I inherited this, but there's this sense that at the workplace,
Mm-hmm.
actually think it was one of my earliest bosses who I really love and I still consider a mentor, but I think he was telling me that, when you get to work late, because I was in corporate America when he said this, there's no personal excuse that is worthy of explaining why you're late. The business sees you as being late,
Mm-hmm.
so you're late. So don't say, "Oh, well, my dog ran out of the." And I don't know why I'm saying that, except to say that I think what gets perpetuated there's a consistent white wall of management that show up a certain way and do the work and leave the personal stuff at the door. Let's just be a good leader and show up consistently and not take notice of people's being.
Yeah. And if we want to follow that line of thinking, which is fine because that works for some people, and that's the way some corporations are built, is that if the whole idea is to make the machine work and produce the thing the machine needs to produce, then you need to have all your tools to be able to do that. And one of your tools could be noticing how someone's being and then responding a particular way. Not to then say, oh, not to say, oh, they're sad, so I'm going to check in on them that they're sad.
Oh
But that
shit!
I
That
noticed that person's sad, so I'm going to speak to them a particular way to get
oh
them to
my
produce the thing I
goodness,
need them to produce.
that is freaking genius.
You,
It's not see something, say something.
yes.
Holy moly's!
It's that, just like a plant, if you notice a plant is wilting, you're not going to suddenly go up to the plant and be like, I see that you're wilting. What do you need? Right? It's like, oh, I'm going to change how I've just been in
How
the next
you?
5
Yes,
minutes to get the plant better. So
I
it's not
love
suddenly
that.
your job is to make the person feel better if they're sad. It's that,
Yes,
oh, this person is showing up a particular way. So who do I need to be to get out of them what I need? Maybe I
but
have to just be a little softer. Maybe, whatever it is.
that is so. The path is being laid. Like it's again, it's to be able to be in relationship where you can notice it and it doesn't short circuit to some automatic behavior. For instance, and this is something I have to learn, which is when someone is sad in my presence, whether it's my wife or my kids or my parents, my job is not to regulate and try and make myself feel better, which is my automatic short circuit. Like, oh, person is sad, I need to crack a joke or I need to try and make them happy. It's what you're talking about is, yes, the person's sad and yes, you notice it, doesn't mean you have to pull out your tricks in your back pocket to regulate the situation. Doesn't mean you have to.
Doesn't mean you have to. And it could just mean, okay, who do I need to be in this situation to create the thing I need from them, even if they're sad? Instead of, like 18,000 other things we could do. It's basically like I like to think about being really tied to ownership and responsibility. If I notice this in another person, who do I need to be or how do I need to show up to get the thing that I need from them?
Mm. Now help me unpack the "who do I need to be" phrase to the computer scientist.
Yeah.
So it's like who. So I
So I
see.
think there's two parts to
Yeah.
this. One is what do I need to how do I need to show up in this moment to get my needs met? And how do I need to show up in this moment to get their thing that either I need from them or that they need, that this conversation has to produce? Because what we know is that in organizational work, it's not my job to make somebody feel better or make their day better if they're sad. Now, depending on the type of relationship you have with someone, that might be the natural thing you would ask and work with, but that's something separate. What I'm pointing to is if I know that someone showing up as very short and we could just go with like short and not very friendly, um, freaks me out, then I know, okay, I need to show up as a certain way so that even if that person's being like this in our meeting, it doesn't have to derail the meeting for me.
Mm,
So it's
mm,
kind of like we're noticing things not to then fix them, but we're noticing things about other people so that we don't have to be impacted about it negatively. The room maybe doesn't. And I feel like you and I are kind of in a dichotomy of it being positive or negative. It's not always like that, right? It's that
mm.
someone could show up and be feeling lost and bringing a sense of confusion. And you're like, well, okay, if they're being confused today, as a leader, I know we need to get done XYZ. So, what do I need to say right now, or what do I need to produce in this moment so that this meeting doesn't get derailed?
Got it. And then how do I get let's say, for instance, the person shows up with a need and I have a need. But
Mm-hmm.
in order for me to be with their need, I have to, who am I going to be is not needy for my issue.
Mm-hmm.
But how then do I make up for that? So, because, yeah, I guess it's we're not saying that who do I need to be as a way to say put yourself second and the other person first, right?
Correct.
We're not saying that.
Yeah.
We're just saying that you're able to separate the how that person is showing up from what that means for who you are as a human. Is that and again, this is supposed to be a little abstract, so let's get abstract and then let's get it back to earth, I
Uh-huh.
guess.
Well, I think the thing that has to be said is that this whole conversation around being isn't then to solve or fix how that person is being. This is simply a tool that we can have in our toolbox. So if someone is showing up a particular way, we have facility in noticing it because noticing is great because then we know how to treat the person, what to say next, whatever. We then can have practice and facility in understanding what we might need to think about or be with for a second in our minds that we don't get, inundated with whatever they're bringing, right? It's kind of like, again, I don't want to keep going to like negative positive. If you were in a meeting and suddenly, you're a CTO and suddenly your CEO is like really aggressive and just bringing on a lot of stuff, and normally that upsets you, what a great trick to be able to be like, okay, that person is being this way. What I know is that makes me angry. But if I continue to be angry because they're being like this, I'm not going to produce the result I want in this meeting. So I need to not be taken over by
Mm,
how they're showing up. It's kind
mm,
of like we're separating the people a little bit from how they're being so that we don't
mm,
have to get impacted by it.
mm,
And it could also be the other way around. Wow, this person is bringing such confidence and compassion to this meeting. We need more of this. Like I
mm,
see how this is actually infiltrating the team. So it's not like we're talking about noticing being or how people are showing up so that we can fix it for them. It's just another tool that we have. Wow, if we noticed more of how people were showing up to meetings and what was, then maybe we would better understand the culture more. Then maybe we would better understand how to talk to that person more.
mm. And I think so. If we consider our third month of the trimester, the the thing that we're bringing to our CTOs is the ability to just notice that there is a way someone is showing up.
Yeah. And as people will get to experience at the conference this weekend and in the virtual forums through the month, is that it's less about the other person. We're going to use, well, I won't say that, but it's less about the other person. It's more once we notice that how people show up is important and has impact, then we can start having more facility over how we show up.
How
So
we show.
we can have
Got it.
more impact,
Got it. Got it.
right?
Yeah,
Like
because
if,
now, and actually,
Mhm.
that's very interesting because now what that's telling me is just to understand that there's a way that I am being to the people around me.
Yeah.
And so if the exercise, which I don't know what it is, but if it is to trust and empower what I'm distinguishing in other people, then I can use the curiosity mindset to distinguish my own being and understand that there's an impact that I have to the people around me.
Exactly, because it's there's not a particular order, but there's a few components to this. One is, wow, like it actually is significant and impactful to notice people's being, right? Because then we know what we might need to say to them, how to respond, or how we need to react to something. Then there's the level of realizing that, wow, how someone shows up in the world actually is directly correlated to what they can produce. Right? We know this. We know we've all been in the situation where if you go up to the hostess at a restaurant and you're being an a-hole, you might not get the table you want. But if you come up and you be a certain way, there's more facility
Mm.
there to create what you want, right? We've done it with police officers, we did it with our parents. We've all had facility with this. So this is actually an important part of leadership, is realizing, wow, there is a particular way I show up. And if I can be responsible with that and know when to bring compassion and know when to bring the hard ass and know when to bring
Mm.
such a high level of confidence, I have another tool belt to support me in producing the results I want.
I love that. Now, how does one stay authentic and change your being? For instance, I know I've been involved in a lot of conversations where the product managers all, hey, I'm going to get us some cookies this week and we're all going to go to Dave and Buster's if we, it's just like their being, their being is inspiring me to do less.
Yes. Yeah. So I think the part of it is, and we're going to do this in the exercise at the conference and through November, is first, you have to have facility and practice and being able to notice people's being and
Mm.
remembering we actually can do this. So part of the exercise is going to have people be like, oh, I can see that kind of stuff in other people, and get used to
Mm.
seeing it.
Yeah,
And once you get used to seeing it, you start noticing it in yourself, kind of being down today, or,
got it.
I'm really impatient today. Gosh, me being impatient today is not going to produce the thing that I need with my team. So how do I actually need to show up? And then it is practice, right? None of this is I need to be gregarious. So boom, I'm gregarious all of a sudden. We're not there yet. We're simply starting with the foundation of, oh, I actually have a choice. And as I get good at, choosing how I'm going to show up, I'm going to be able to produce a ton of other stuff with my team.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. So it's like, because I think where this is coming from for me is the fear of not getting it right.
Mm-hmm.
And I know with our people, our CTOs, very much I want to do this the right way. I don't want to screw up. And so the question becomes, well, what if I do this exercise and I distinguish incorrectly? What if I distinguish incorrectly, Britt? Wow. Okay.
I don't, what if?
Yeah. There's no.
Because remember, we're not, I love it. This is full circle. We're not saying, stop doing what you've already been doing, throw this out and
Yes.
only do this. And you have to get it right or else you're going to mess up.
Yes.
I'm just simply saying, this is one more thing we are adding for you to use in your leadership. And you maybe not use it every day, but maybe there will come a time where you'll be in a meeting and you'll be noticing, you know, something about how someone is showing up and realizing, wow, if I match their this instead of something else, maybe this meeting will shift. And I'm just
Absolutely.
going to try something different this time. It
Absolutely.
never goes well with my CEO. So instead, I'm going to try to show up this way and see what happens. It's just another tool.
I love it. I love it. I actually think the who am I being tool is going. Anybody listening to this, I really think it's going to be transformational. And I don't think, and this is just me, but I think with the work being done on curiosity, on relationship, landing into being, for me is an important progression.
Mm-hmm.
You're really utilizing all that, all those concepts and all those practices.
Mm-hmm. Um, you just said something that reminded me of something I wanted to say. It'll make its way back to me when it needs to.
Yeah, I want to. So I don't think people are gonna hear this interview before the conference because
Mm-hmm.
it's 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So can you let me into the exercise that you were gonna have people do, please?
Mm-hmm. By way of presenting it, knowing some people will. Well, there's also the virtual forums who won't have.
Okay, okay. So you're right. So we can talk about that some other time. Yeah, this is gold.
I think this is what I was going to say was, when I first started my coaching business 6 years ago, and it took me about a year to really start getting the clients that I wanted and working in the executive, arena. Um, it was terrifying. I came from academia. I had not had a job in corporate America before, and suddenly I was working with people in corporate America, and I looked pretty young. And it was, a little debilitating to be walking into a boardroom or a conference room knowing that most people are like, how old is she? What is she doing here? And what does she know about what we're up to?
Mm, mm,
And how I showed up was paramount. Because if
mm,
I had allowed that stuff, the stories or how they were being like, I could tell that they were skeptical.
mm.
But in choosing how I was going to show up was, you know, um, paramount for producing the experience I wanted. Because then I didn't allow however they were being to
Mm,
impact me. And I had already just chosen I'm going to be confident, I'm going to be forthright, I'm going to be bold, right? And that changed how people experienced
I
me and
get.
let them feel safe, let them be, oh, she actually has something to say. Wow, she actually is
Mm,
going to provide
mm,
value with us. It was all based on who I was being in that room. It had nothing to do
mm.
with what I was saying.
That is what a perfect example. Because I think we especially with our CTOs and interacting with the product people, with the C-suite, with the CEO, man, there's such power in being able to distinguish their being
Mm-hmm.
and then to decide who I am going to be for this particular situation.
Yeah.
It's, I guess, emotional intelligence calls it self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and then self-management and organized social awareness. You know, to me, those are all sort of the very popular businessy things to talk about. But to me, I love how this just sits inside of humanity and sort of who we can be.
Yeah. To again, because this is all right, we're all here, we're all up to something. And so every one of these conversations, whether it's curiosity, relationship, or being, we're having it so that we can have one more thing that we can work on and get good at to apply to the things we need to apply it to produce the results we want to apply it to. So, just like my example about myself or my example about MLK or any other leader in the world, we know that the way a leader shows up and how they speak and what the experience we have of them is informs if we like them or not, if we
That is
listen,
so
if we
true.
believe them. So, this is simply just a tool in our leadership to say, hey, the way you walk into a room and how your being is, how you show up, impacts the people in that room. And if you can get good at honing in how you're being, you will have one more shot at producing the result that you want.
That is, I mean, that is, I guess the anarchist in the CTO doesn't want that to be true.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, I'm going to do all this technical stuff. I'm going to build the architecture, and this is how you're going to do it, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and 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 I don't need all this being stuff because I'm going to have the results speak for themselves.
Right. And that's fine. then you don't take this, right? But that's why it's like this is just one more thing that if you wanted to pick it up because you were looking to challenge yourself and grow, it could actually be the thing that has you move up the ladder quicker or produce the result you want with your team quicker, right? Because results and organizational stuff speaks for itself. We know
Yeah.
that. But
No.
what we know is that you still got to do it in front of people. You got to get, and then I'm
Well,
thinking, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about anyone who's done interviews is good at picking up on being. Because we all know we read the resumes, we talk to people, but still we want to know how they are, what it's like to talk to them. And I'm sure every person in some point in their life has been in a conversation with someone that was like, I don't want to be with this person.
I don't know. Yeah, I can't put my finger on it, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, recently, this morning, actually, a CEO that I'm helping hire, he's trying to hire some CTOs, and we've been whittling down this list of CTOs, and I've been helping him purely on the resume stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just matching what would be a good fit. Um, and I gave him my feedback. Then he spoke with the three. I think we went from 7 down to 3 candidates, and then he spoke with the 3 candidates, and and emailed me that there's only one of the 3 candidates that he really likes. But
Mm-hmm.
please, will I tell him? Well, please, will I read all his notes to help him decide if he should, if I should now interview the candidates that he likes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very easy. I didn't even read his notes. Ayal, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I didn't read his notes because I realized that he had already distinguished the being of one of the 3, and he picked the one. And there's no point in me coming back and saying, "Oh, well, the second one is really good at this." And no, there's already a sense that there's only one of those 3 candidates that's going to work for him.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be happy to talk to that person. I'm not going to go talk to the people where is already something that he unwittingly distinguished about the other candidates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, I so badly wanted to give an example.
Can we pause for a second?
Yeah,
How do we?
hang on. What I want to tell you about was I'm really noticing how either or I am in um, the example I just gave about, oh, technical results will speak for themselves. And in my brain, I'm like, I'm talking about me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to fix that in the CTO and by erasing and implanting new thinking. But what I love about what you keep on saying is no, we don't have to throw the shit out. We just have to add more tools.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm feeling convicted at how judgy I am about my own people. And I have a reaction to it, right? And so I tend to then overcompensate the other way. So it's really just helpful for me to look at it as a um, there's a there's a way there's a way that you got here. It doesn't make excuse me doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong. And all the stuff we're talking about with curiosity, relationship, being essence, all these things just add and enhance and just gives us the potential or unlocks the potential to just have a lot more fun as we're CTOing our companies.
Yeah, like just like in coaching, we're not trying to solve, fix, or do anything. We're trying to create more possibility. So all we're doing in this trimester is adding different tools and ways of thinking about something so that people have more facility in their leadership and more facility in how they handle their teams, so on and so forth. And what's hilarious that I just realized while you were talking is that you have been doing this through the lens of like find the problem and solve it, right? The whole thing we started with about curiosity, you're like, oh, this, okay, so it must be a problem that we do it this way, so we need to stop doing it this way and just do it this way.
Amazing. That is hilarious. You're right. This whole chat, I'm struggling with my problem solving.
Yeah. Because again, this every conversation we're having is simply about expanding. So as to not limit to the thing we already know how to do. All we ever want people to do to grow is expand. That doesn't mean throw out what they already know. It's how do we add to it?
Honestly, that's one of the most important things I had to hear about this. Because even when I approached you about can you help me design something, I was we need to fix our CTOs. We need to take out the one brain and put in another one. And I really the expansion word to me is everything right now, because it's, listen, we're simply adding and expanding. And so whatever you brought to the table, we don't have to erase your face. We just have to give you some more tools to work with. I love that.
Yeah. You know, it's like cooking. You might know exactly how to make a particular soup, and then someday you might be like, oh, I'm going to add in this because this is what today needs or something, right? It's not
Yeah.
saying this isn't working. It's that what are the parts of myself that I actually haven't yet practiced or learned about? And if I did, how could that help expand my product awareness, my problem solving, my relationships, my leadership?
And I think that I talk a lot about the unrealized potential that the CTO type has in the C-suite.
Mm-hmm.
Because what if you could take all those skills that you've had to hone, and really this goes probably for any C-suite member, but particularly the CTO. What if you could take all that skill, the engineering prowess, the logical deduction, the complexity analysis, and and be able to wrap that inside of all this expanded skill set? Oh my goodness, man, that is Tony Stark
Yeah.
plus plus.
And that's really what Seven CTOs is about, right? It's that if you put people together, suddenly more becomes possible, right? Two CEOs is better than one CTO because then that person can tell this person something they've never thought of before. It's exactly what we do in challenge processing, right? This is just more of it. It's like what is still outside of your current realm that if you
Mm.
just add it in is just going to make you all the better as a leader, a CTO, all of it.
And that's basically what the challenge processing framework's intention is how do I get 20 more viewpoints on this problem that you're stuck with?
Yeah. So curiosity, relationship, and being, they're just more viewpoints. They're not going to be able to apply to every second, every minute to
Yes.
everything that you're doing. No, it's, oh, I've never practiced that. In this moment, my
Yeah.
team is being this way. What if I practice curiosity right now? What might happen?
And the way the way when I was facilitating the forums through curiosity specifically, it was a very interesting to see the grappling
Mm,
with what I've been doing, what the grappling with. Hey, Etienne, so what you're saying is what I've been doing up till now is wrong. I now have to do this new thing, which is not what I said,
right.
but it's it's this mind which is like, oh shit, it's wrong. I have to fix it, and and really that to me is where this expansion mindset, the
Hmm.
curiosity mindset says, no, you have wonderful, amazing skills. You have a beautiful path that has led you to this point. Now let's just add a bunch of these skills to just make it even more
Yeah.
advanced.
And if the whole idea of this, whether this being seven CTOs or technology or companies' visions and missions, the whole idea is right to get somewhere where we're not yet. How could we possibly do that if we just keep using the tools we already have? We have to use different tools and we have to have many that are going to support us.
I love it. This is why you are our HOC.com.
HOC.com on the radio station of already always listening.
All what always already always listening. Oh,
Already always listening.
so good. That is so good. Well, I think we nailed it.
Hmm.
May this be the first of many conversations. Thank you for joining me in the CTO studio. which is
Mm-hmm.
now partly your studio. So do with it what you want.
I'd like you to change your shirt to a different color.
Yes, my
That's cool.
shirt. And maybe just sort of as a parting thought, some thoughts about your role and 7 CTOs and how it's been. It's been a few months now. Well, actually, no, it's
Then one
hardly
month
been.
and 1 day, 2 days.
That is shocking.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't. It's only been 30.5 days.
Mm-hmm.
How has it been?
It's been great. It's been really fun to observe the forums and see the different beings that show up in the forums, right? How different forums go. It's been so fun talking to you about how do you create a space for CTOs to come and get coaching in the world so that they can be the leaders and the technological officers that they want to be. Um, and I think our vision and purpose of what we want to have impact on in the world is similar. So
Yeah,
it always feels good to have, um, actual things you're doing any given day that feel in alignment with what you want to see on the planet.
yeah, yeah.
Which to
And I
me
think,
is people expanding beyond where they're already expanded, so that more things can become possible.
yeah, and I think the moment I realized that we were cut from the same cloth was very special. So I'm super thankful for you, and thank you for flying with me. And I am excited to see what's next.
Mm-hmm.
See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.